In this video, I'm breaking down the exact 13 lessons and mistakes I learned the hard way so you can avoid wasting time, energy, and years repeating the same pattern that has held you back. Now, I'm not sharing this as someone who has figured it all out. I'm just a young upcoming entrepreneur, and every lesson in this video has caused me frustration, self-doubt, and missed progress, which is exactly why this matters. All 13 lessons of these point to the same simple truth, that you cannot change your life without changing how you think, act, and show up every single day. So if you want to make 2026 the year that everything changes, then let's get straight into lesson number one. Lesson number one, you cannot change your life without being willing to change yourself first. And I say this because I spent most of my 2025 focusing on the future. I mean, I had this vivid, clear picture of how my life would look like 10 years from now. The cars that I would drive, the business that I would have, the family, the house, all these things. But there was just one problem. And that was I wasn't taking the actions that would actually get me there. I was just waiting for my life to change while staying the exact same person. The moment that everything just shifted for me was when I attended this seminar. And I remember I was just surrounded by people who were actually living my dream. But the thing was that they had taken the action, they had put it in the hard work, and they had gone all in to achieve that. And there I was, just standing in the middle, feeling a little frustrated and honestly also a bit hopeless, because despite all that dreaming, my life hadn't changed at all. And that is when I pulled up a notebook and wrote down, your life cannot change if you're not willing to change yourself first. And that is exactly how this day became a turning point for me, because you cannot expect results without taking aligned actions. And dreams without actions, they will just continue to be dreams and nothing else. I mean, my mentor always says, the goal is not to achieve the goal is to become the person who achieves the goal. And since I was focused on the outcome, I was completely blinded to becoming the person where the outcome is actually inevitable. So if you take nothing else from this video, stop waiting for your life to change and start changing yourself first, and then the rest will follow. Lesson number two, feedback requires volume. For months in 2025, I wanted to post content. I had all these ideas and I had so many things that I wanted to say, but I kept holding back. I didn't publish anything simply because I was too terrified that it wouldn't be perfect. And it sounds stupid because this basically shows that I wanted validation before I even started. But I remember one time I was going to Dubai, visiting a friend and his girlfriend, working. And one night we went on a rooftop to get dinner and we started talking about creating content. And I said I wanted to do all these things, but 2 months went by and nothing had happened. And that is when it clicked for me. So I bought this camera that I'm filming on right now and committed to documenting my life every single day and uploading it on YouTube. And I told myself that I have no perfectionism. I don't overthink, I just take action. And the lesson here is that to improve, you need feedback. And that is why I just started posting content. And feedback only comes from massive volume and taking action repeatedly. So don't wait for perfection. Just put it out there, see how you can improve, and that's how you get better. Lesson number three, problem, and that's okay. There was something that I constantly struggled with in 2025. And that was whenever I avoided outreach or delayed some important work, I would constantly beat myself up for it. And the self-criticism was absolutely brutal. And instead of motivating me to take action, it just made me feel worse, which led to seeking out distractions, cheap dopamine, scrolling, and anything to just avoid the guilt that I was feeling, which of course just made the problem even bigger. But I remember one day I was at the gym walking on the treadmill. I had headphones on, I was listening to the Game Alex and Moses podcast. But there's one thing while I was walking that really stood out to me. And Alex said that the number one thing that has helped him the most is saying, I have a problem and that is okay. Because that way he didn't give any power to that problem. He just focused on how he could move forward. And looking back, I see what I did was that I gave my problem too much power. What actually sounds really simple, typing a few words, sending it out to a stranger, just became this massive big deal in my head. But me being able to say, I'm afraid to reach out to strangers, and that's okay, instantly just eliminated the problem and made me focus on how can I move forward instead. And since that day, whenever I catch myself in a problem or have a problem, I just say to myself, I have this problem, I'm afraid, I don't talk that much to my old friends anymore. People might think that I'm a loser, and that is okay. Because you see, problems, they are normal. They are going to happen eventually. But what you have to do is that you have to accept them and then focus on how you can move forward. What is the next step? And that is how you achieve massive success. Lesson number 4, I do do it anyways. Fear, doubt, procrastination, these were three things that just controlled my 2025. I would avoid taking action just because I wasn't motivated, or I was afraid of failing, or because I was afraid of what people might think of me. And the more that I let those feelings dictate my actions, the more stuck I felt. So one day I decided to do something completely different, and that was to, whenever I meet a problem, I would repeatedly in my head say, I'll do it anyways. So if I was tired, I just said it in my head over and over again. I do it anyways. I do it anyways. I do it anyways. If I was scared, I do it anyways. I do it anyways. If it was past my bedtime, I do it anyways. I do it anyways. Because what happened here was that over time, acting despite having fear became a habit. And it was not like the fear was just gone, but I stopped letting it control me. And once I just started building a bit of momentum, everything just got easier. So the lesson here is that action beats fear every single time. And you've probably heard it 1,000 times. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel motivated. You just do it anyways. Lesson number 5. You cannot just sit and wait for the opportunities to come around. For 6 months in 2025, I made a massive mistake. I sat around and waited for clients to come to me. I just assumed that I was good enough that the opportunities would just fall into my lap. But spoiler alert, they didn't. I remember one day vividly pictured that this entire game is just like loading bullets in a chamber, and every bullet is a sign of risk, and the more risk that you can take and load in that chamber and shoot it at a target, the more chances you get to pursue that opportunity. And if you just sit there and wait and don't load up your chamber with bullets, someone else will come behind you, load up their chamber, and just shoot on the opportunities that rightfully was yours. And that day it just got clear for me. Opportunities must be created. You cannot sit and wait around for them. And each risk that you take, each action that feels uncomfortable is one bullet in that chamber that you get to shoot for that opportunity. So don't just sit around and hoping the opportunities will come to you, because they won't. Lesson number 6. Give more than you take just because you love the work. In the beginning of 2025, I remember I was furious. I was really frustrated because I was working so hard for people and I felt like I wasn't getting the same amount of value back. But one moment I decided to say, from now on, I'll just give and not expect anything back. And that is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Every relationship I've had, and I'd get more than I took, I've got it 1,000 times back. I remember the time I started working with my mentor. I just kept writing YouTube scripts for him and VSL scripts without expecting anything back because I loved it. And I can just say now that this is one of the most valuable relationships that I have now. So the lesson here is just, for God's sake, give more than you take just because you love the work. Because I'll promise you, when you commit to becoming a giver instead of a taker, eventually you'll be blessed so much more than you can imagine. And you'll stop feeling stressed and frustrated as I did, and start feeling happy again just because you can help other people. Lesson number 7. Do stuff, then talk about stuff. When I started creating content, I would overthink like crazy. I would spend hours trying to come up with the perfect narrative, the perfect angle, or the perfect story. But all that was just busy work. Instead, what I could have done was that I could just go out, do stuff, and then talk about stuff afterwards. Instead of obsessing over how you tell the story, you just go out and act on it. And by doing first and talking about it later, I produced more content, I learned faster, and I connected with more people authentically just because I wasn't trying to manufacture a story. So remember, action comes before the story. It's just like the old good saying, walk the walk instead of talking the talk. Lesson number 8. Work hard enough, long enough, you'll be big enough soon enough. When I really kickstarted my entrepreneurial journey in 2025, I remember working 2-3 months and I didn't see any results, and it got me pissed that I'd worked so hard but not to get anything. But I remember I heard this quote from Tony Robbins, and he said, you'll get surprised of how little you will achieve in 1 year, but you will get surprised of how much you can achieve in 10 years. And from that day on, I committed to the saying, work hard enough, long enough, you'll be big enough, soon enough. And for me, the question wasn't if I would be successful. It was when and how long does it take to get there. It was like the success was inevitable, that I could clearly see my future self. And if I kept taking action on the tasks, eventually I would get there. So I want you to remember, work hard enough, long enough, you'll be big enough, soon enough. Keep working, keep learning, and keep improving. Lesson number 9, stick to your offer, your market, and your message. This is a bit more tactical, but in 2025, I would chase all the new shiny objects, but I was just spreading myself thin. And one day I heard something from Sam Ovens, and he said that in order to build a profitable business, you need clarity. Clarity on your market, your offer, and your message, which is, who do you speak to? How do you help them? And what do you say to them? This way, when a new storm came, AI revolutionizing, stock market crashing, or the world is on fire, I didn't feel like my business was falling apart in front of my eyes. It felt like my business had 3 solid pillars instead of being built on sand. So the lesson here is get clear on what you're building and who you're building it for, and then go all in on that. Lesson number 10, seek true mastery. This mistake right here cost me a ton of time. I thought that I was already good at what I did going into 2025. I've been writing VSLs and copy for a while now, and I thought that I'd figured everything out. But the more that I researched my market, the more that I saw my competitors and what they did, and the more that I studied the craft, the more I realized that there's just levels to each and every game. And I just realized instead of spreading myself thin and focusing on everything on a shallow level, you need to dive deep on one thing on a deep level. This way you become a specialist where you know the market inside out and every single problem in that niche, and you can start charging premium prices because you're an expert. And I don't know about you, but if you went to get a surgery, would you rather have this expert surgeon who specialized in that one thing, that particular thing that's wrong with you, or would you just have a generalized doctor? The surgeon, right? And you will gladly pay him even more. So the real light bulb thing for me was focus on one skill and pursue mastery, because depth creates value. So don't try to be good at everything. Be exceptionally good at one thing, and that's where all the opportunities are. Lesson number 11, everything is painful. You just have to choose your pain. I remember the first week of my entrepreneurial journey. I looked at this big mountain of all this work that I had to do, and I remember I just felt completely overwhelmed, and something deep inside of me wanted to avoid it. I wanted the success without all the discomfort, without all the hard work, without all the uncertainty. But when I realized this, it just changed my entire perspective. That life is painful no matter what. You just have to choose your pain. And you can either choose short-term pain and long-term pain. And short-term pain typically is more physical. You'll feel drained, you'll feel overwhelmed, you'll feel tired, you'll feel weak, you'll feel afraid. But that is also where the long-term pleasure is, and actually achieving the life that you want. Then on the other hand, you have long-term pain. This is more mental. This is the regret of not achieving your goals. It's the guilt of letting down people who actually believed in you and rooted for you. And it's the shame of being in the exact same spot where you were yesterday. And after I saw it this way, it became crystal clear. I would do anything to avoid that long-term pain. So remember, everything is painful. There's pain of discipline and there's pain of regret. You have to pick one because you're getting one either way. Lesson 12, control your stories. For a long time in 2025, I felt like these negative narratives was running my life. Whenever something didn't go as planned, whether it was the content that I put up that didn't get as many views, whether I was reaching out and I got a hateful message, or that I launched a new funnel but it flopped, I just tend to create all these stories to why I wasn't good enough and why I was behind, why I missed the chance of success. And you know what? Those stories just dictated my actions. They kept me small and they kept me stuck. And one time I had enough. I remember I realized the stories that we tell ourselves is the one that can build us up to have the best life ever with everything that we wanted. Success, freedom, love. But the stories that we tell ourselves are also the ones that can get us to the breaking point where we are standing on the edge trying to take our own life. So just remember, the stories that we tell ourselves are the ones that control our actions. So control your stories and you can control your reality, because the stories that you tell yourself is your reality. So if I were you, I would do anything in my power to reflect all the bad stories and keep all the good stories coming in to build you up. So remember, you are the author of your own story. Stop writing the ones that keeps you stuck and start writing ones that keeps you moving forward. Lesson number 13, resistance equals push even harder. Here's the final lesson, and honestly, it's one of the most important ones. In 2025, whenever I met resistance, whether it was hard work, a challenging task, or the uncomfortable truth, I wanted to seek comfort and take the easy way out. But one day when I listened to a podcast with Russell Brunson, he had a guest on and they talked about how you can see resistance as a shadow of a tree, and that tree is opportunity. So if Russell Brunson had two choices, he would take the one where he met the most resistance, because he team knew that the bigger the resistance, the bigger the opportunity is behind it. So the lesson here is that resistance is a signal, not a warning. And when you feel resistance, you don't want to run from it. You want to run towards it and hit that thing head on, because that is exactly where your next breakthrough is waiting for you. So those were the 13 mistakes and lessons that I made in 2025. Now, what I don't want you to do is to move on to the next video. I want you to take just a few minutes to reflect on this. Maybe even go back in the video and ask yourself the question, where can I apply this in my life right now? And you don't have to do all 13. You can just pick out 2 that spoke to you the most. And when you do this, I'll promise you that your 2026 will be the year where you change. Now, don't forget, if you're a business owner, a coach or creator and want me to write your next video sales letter, you can just DM me the word VSL on Instagram. The link is in my bio. See you in the next one. Bye.